This is episode number 7.1, Humble Beginnings. This is a very special episode. It's the first part of a two-part episode, I'd like to call it. Now, in this episode, we talk about Donna's humble beginnings, the challenges that she faced as a very little girl, and what happened to her, and just how she went through life before what I would call her enlightenment. So listen to the craziness that this woman had to go through, and just look at how amazing and how confident and how empowered she's become, and how she's sharing that with the rest of the world. This one is really exciting for me. It's really cool. I love all the things that she's doing, and I hope you guys will support her and send her continuing love on her journey to help others feel more empowered and successful in their lives. You know, I like to say start at the beginning, but the beginning's not always the best part. So whatever you feel is like most relevant in your life right now would probably be the best thing to talk about, since that's what you're feeling most.
I love that.
But first we could just do a little background, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're my girlfriend's mom.
Hi! That's amazing.
So, I know that you've had a very difficult story, but I don't know the whole story.
Really?
I don't know. I really don't know. I know the difficulties starting when you were growing up. I know, everything. Well, I shouldn't say everything with your parents, but I know what happened with your parents,
mm-hmm.
which I'll let you talk about because it's not my story to say. And, maybe just to talk about that really quick,
mm-hmm.
and then go into what's most relevant to you right now would be pretty cool.
Okay. So I always just say I started my life when I had parents who were 16 and 17 who were both good people but in a lot of pain, so they were both addicted to heroin. And I was actually born addicted to heroin, so that
Wow.
was kind of the start of everything kind of coming out in stress. So that does really have a strong effect on people when they're not taken care of in that way. And I would say the impact of losing my mom when I was 4, she died of a heroin overdose in front of me at a gas station. And I think that is kind of when the shock or whatever happened to me, the trauma, was a huge impact to my life at that point.
Where was your father at that point?
I think they were I don't think they were together anymore. And there was I remember the only memory I have of my mother is that day in the car
Jesus.
with a man who had mirrored sunglasses on, and I was in the back seat, and I remember my mother being laid out in the front. I know there was snow on the ground, and they were trying to revive her with putting snow, and I was peeking over at her.
Oh man.
And I think I looked up. I never cried. I just looked up, and I think I just, my whole body just shut down. And my emotions or whatever, but I didn't cry about it. I don't know anything else, and it's the only day I remember of her. And then, from there, I wasn't allowed to grieve or talk about it because the family was so distraught that I could feel that they were they couldn't even handle it. But then my mother's brother, my Uncle Buster, he was taking care of me in my grandparents' home, and he would be the one who would brush my hair at night, and we would sleep in the same bed because I think he was just taking care of me. And I woke up one day with him, and he was dead from a heroin overdose as well. So, shock number 2 to the system, trauma,
How old were you then?
I think I was 6, or 5. It was a year or so after, which really traumatized my grandmother.
Do you remember what it was like for the second time?
No.
Looking at... Mm-mm. No. Do you feel like those are repressed memories, or do you feel
yeah. I don't even know for sure. I know that happened, but I can't, my memory doesn't bring it up. But I do remember that my grandmother she started to really lose it, and she had to take a lot of medication, which I think she kind of was
Right.
a little bit. You know, there was dysfunction.
What was it about the family, though, that, like, why was there so much like abuse of drugs and heroin? Was it just the time? Was it the area? Was it financial?
I think just I think with my mom, like from what I was told about her, she was a free spirit. Like she would walk in a room and light up the room, and she was really beautiful and sassy, and took like I was like, wow, like.
Was this the 70s at that point? Late
Yes.
60s, the 70s.
70s. So you know,
Right.
kind of that time.
And that
I
was
think there was more alcohol abuse more than drugs. I think
Right.
there was in the family, but
Right.
some of that too.
Do you know other people that you grew up with similar situations? Like,
In my family?
I mean, just the people around you, neighbors, friends, like,
No.
it was really your family that seemed to be so, like, caught or stuck in
But it didn't seem like it. It didn't seem like when I lived in it, it didn't
Yeah.
seem like it was like that. Like, it didn't seem like, oh my God. I mean, because it's all I knew.
Right.
And my grandmother, I lived with my grandmother and my grandfather, like that's the majority of what I remember. I lived in their house, and my grandfather was really like my savior, like my protection. My grandmother was a little like loud and a little crazy, and she was a little scary sometimes. But he was really the person that I felt safe around. And after my Uncle Buster passed is when I think my grandmother started to really lose it, and she started to abuse me.
Was that her son?
Yeah.
Uncle Buster?
Yeah, so she just lost 2 children
Wow.
within 2 years. So she really lost it, and she started to take it out on me. So they had to remove me from the house. And so I went to another family to live there, and I ended up upstate with my Aunt Madge and her husband Michael. And I stayed there from like 8 to 16, and then I moved out on my own.
Are there any things in particular, like, that you would speak about, like any kind of abuse that happened, or anything in particular that you can remember that, you know, is really scarring? Or
I would say, like, I'll never forget the day my grandmother beat the hell out of me. Like, I'll never forget that. Like, I actually, like, wet myself. Like, you know, I don't think she meant it, because I know she loved me. I think she really just couldn't take it. And that was a really traumatic part for me. And then I think the trauma of not feeling like you belong, like not having parents to protect you, and being moved around, and not, you know, living in someone else's home, and trying to be good, and all that comes with it. I think it was just like trickling trauma all the way through, sprinkled in with some good stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, at what point, like, would you say that your life was ever more stable? Like, did you ever get to a point in your childhood or younger years where you were like, all right, like, this is where I'm...
Yeah. So when I went to live with Madge when I was 8,
Okay.
It felt like from that time it was a little bit more like stable. We lived in Greenwood Lake, and we had a house, and my uncle had a boat, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and I had my sister Carrie, who was adopted, so we called each other, we felt like sisters. And we had a big yard, and I played with Barbie dolls. And I would say the only thing, like, Madge was just not emotionally available. Like, she grew up with that family, so she just wasn't emotionally available, but I knew she wanted me. Like, you know, I knew she was doing her best, but she just really couldn't give me what I needed. Like, I needed some help grieving and processing and feeling loved, and so she didn't have that. Mike, he was mean. I knew he didn't want me there. He was sexually abusive, which set off a lot of patterns and things for me in my adult life. But I come to find out that was a little traumatizing for me too, and I didn't realize it till my older years about how he made me feel living in that home and what I had to do to like feel like I had to stay there and earn my keep. But it wasn't like horrible. Like I've gone back because I used to say, oh, that was horrible, and when I look back, I was like, you know what? I was okay. It wasn't as horrible as I perceived it, because sometimes it's the story in our head too, like, oh my God. But you know what? She did her best, and I was in a safe home. It just wasn't comfortable. It didn't feel like it was safe in the fact that I lived there and I didn't have to move around, but emotionally I didn't feel like held and
Gotcha.
like loved in that way.
I know that you've worked through a lot of stuff already at this point in your life, but of course there's always more. So what do you think right now is something that's, you know, still affecting you that you need to heal or accept and move past?
I would say the feeling of belonging and family. I feel like there's always this thing, I never feel like I belong anywhere. Like I create a lot of things for a lot of people, but I always feel like I'm on the outside looking in, and I'm like, wow, like where do I belong in all this? So I think that right now I'm trying to get right with my God, the universe, and have that connection so I don't look outside so much anymore to have that approval, validation, or belonging.
Right. I mean, I noticed, I don't know if this would, you know, coincide with anything you feel, but so often I get a lot of value I get self-value from helping other people.
Totally.
I always find that when I'm helping other people, I feel great.
Totally.
And so I thought, and still I'm working through this now, this was a recent realization, I don't fully love myself. And the only time I would love myself is if I was giving love, if I was helping people, if I was doing something for other people. And then I realized this year, when I didn't have the time to do that, when I didn't have the energy to do that, when I was in a bad place, I had nothing to love myself for anymore. And so I felt disconnected, and I felt like I had nothing to bring. And it was just because I didn't accept who I am, and I didn't love who I am. And so when that one thing that was giving myself value was taken away from me, then what did I have?
Right.
And so do you feel like maybe it's because there are still so many things inside of you that you haven't accepted, that like no matter what you create and no matter who you help, you don't belong because you're allowing these people to feel accepted and loved, but you're still not feeling accepted and loved.
There's that, and there's also like what I've learned is one of the patterns of to get love, I gotta do this. I gotta do this for that, and I did that like a lot. I ran around and gave so much of myself and abandoned myself in it, and that still plays a part, but it's a lot less.
Okay.
And now I value myself enough to go, yeah. But sometimes, you know, because there's I know I'm living in my purpose by serving others, by trying to turn my mess into a message. Like I know that's my purpose, and if I just live in my purpose and not worry about who comes and who goes and all of that, that my path will just stay revealed and steady, and I will receive everything I need and desire. But it's still, there's certain patterns and beliefs that, operating from the wound, which I've worked on, but still working on. So I do see it sometimes, and I'm like, okay, step back, take a breath. You don't have to do so much or give so much. But part of it is just my purpose. So it's finding the balance of the purpose and, is that the pattern? Operating from there. So I'm getting a little bit better with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I see it.
What do you think was like a defining moment or a defining experience that you had that really helped you to jump from where you were to where you are now? Like, something that happened to you that really allowed
Panic attacks.
Yeah?
Yeah, scared the shit out of me.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you?
I started experiencing them. I would have them little flares of them, and because I didn't realize I was always operating from a high anxiety, and I was just smiling and pushing it down, and what do you need? Can I help you? Will you love me now? I was like running around like that. But they started to get bad in my late 40s, and I had a lot of stress at my job and people around me, and not a lot of support. And so I think it just was like a barrel, I kept pushing it down, and then it just erupted with panic attacks so bad that I first couldn't get on a plane, then I couldn't go on a train, then I couldn't go on a bridge, then I couldn't get in my car, and then I couldn't come out of the house, and I knew that I had to do something. And there was one day in particular where I remember I sat on the floor, and I had a little child, so I was trying to be like happy mom and make sure she felt wonderful, but I was struggling and suffering for a long time. And one day I just hit the floor, my knees and my hands down, and I prayed to God, please, please help me. I don't know what else to do. I'm so scared I'm gonna die, like of a heart attack or something. And I heard the word enough, like really loud, like in my head. I go, what the? And I heard enough. And I sat up and I was like, yeah, enough. This is enough of living like this. And something just flipped in me. And as soon as I said that, I said, I'm going to go to the bookstore and I'm going to find something to help me. And I happened to trip over a book as I was walking in an aisle, and I go, Gabrielle Bernstein, who is this? Spirit junkie, what is this? And I just said, you know what? Don't even open it, take it home. And I took it home, and it was all about choosing faith over fear. I didn't realize that I was operating from fear. I was operating, don't die because you're going to leave your daughter. Oh my God, don't upset that person. They're going to take your daughter. Or oh my God, your job's going to fire you. I was just operating from such scarcity, lack, and fear. And I read the book, and I was like, oh my God, I need to change my life. And I looked in the back, and it happened to be she had a workshop starting that weekend. Universe, thank you. And I went to the workshop, and I went to every workshop, and then from there, one thing led to the next thing, and I went to Soul Camp, and that opened up a whole world for me. And just because I said enough and chose myself, everything just started to open up.
When was that?
That was probably like 48, 49.
So that wasn't a long time ago.
No.
So you think for the first 45 years of your life, you were pretty much just
oh my God.
Operating
oh my God.
with such low energy.
Exhausting, depleting, running around, pleasing others.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty.
What made you feel called to where you are now, though? You practice sound healing and breath work and yoga and meditation and I'm sure Reiki, all these other things. Because it's a different community altogether.
Yes.
Right? And did you ever feel interested in any of that before?
I always watched Oprah.
Okay.
Oprah was my new mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember my daughter Courtney was she was a toddler, and I would sit in the house. I was depressed. I was married. I was just alone. And I would watch Oprah, and she was like, you can live your best life. And I was like, what? I'm not living my best life, so talk to me, Oprah. And so I watched her every day, and then I started to go, wow, I think there's something different out there. So I always had I would read, I was just drawn to it, but I was never practicing it. And people would always come to me and ask for oh, what should I do with this? And I always had this way with people, but I was just so stressed out and depleted and exhausted and running around like a crazy woman out of wounds and all of that behavior and patterns that I didn't practice it till everything got so bad that I said, you know what? I gotta find a way to heal myself. Whatever it takes, I'll invest in myself. I chose myself over everything for once in my life. It didn't matter about anything else except learning how to love myself and take care of myself. And as soon as I did that, I was brought to this type of breath work, the Reiki. Everything just started to take me down this path that I was able to heal myself, and I still continue to heal myself and grow. But everything that I learned and I healed myself through, I became certified in, so I can do that with others and hold space, because I feel that's the gift of it.
Absolutely.
And because there's a lot of people struggling like I struggled. And we don't realize that most of us are operating from our subconscious of what we saw as a child and what we experienced, and that we're our own worst enemy, and we're stuck in our stuff that we really got to like look at and become aware of, so we could start to peel away everything that doesn't belong to us anymore, because most of it was put on us and taught to us. And if we go back to who we truly are and our true nature of what we're here to do, which is to serve others and love ourselves, and when we start to operate from that place, life gets easier and more peaceful, and we're able to shine our light and be a beacon for others.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that you say a lot of the time that the universe is giving you exactly what you need. And so how do you feel, where's the balance between allowing things, or things are happening for you all the time, right?
Totally.
How do you accept those things? How do you become ready to accept what the universe is trying to give you? Because there are so many people who are struggling, and they might see what they want, and they might have that feeling, that initial feeling that you had, where it's like, I can have what I want, I can live a better life, but then they stay where they are. How do you open yourself up and become more accepting of what the world is trying to give you?
I feel like, unfortunately, it's people come to a place where they're struggling so much that there's no other choice. And I want to try to be like a messenger that you don't have to do that.
Right.
Like, you just have to become aware of how you're operating. And a lot of it is from patterns and beliefs of who we are and what we're not. And when you have the awareness that I was always like struggling against everything. Like, I was always like, everything was a struggle. I was always anxious. But when we just step into the flow of our life and not push against what is, and we just allow it to be without all these stories of it shouldn't be this way and why is this happening to me, and we're going, okay, this is happening for my growth. Let me look at that. Let me breathe into that. Let me just accept what is for now. And then also you can direct it a little to how it would be better for you, and it's more like stepping into the flow instead of going against everything, which is a lot to do with perception. Like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's with anything. Wherever you are, it's accepting what is, because all it is the now, right? It's the present moment. I think like when we start projecting like the future or reviewing the past is where we get caught. And I still do it, but then I like go, snap out of it. But we all do it. It's just a matter of practice of like stepping back into the now and going, wow, everything's amazing.
Yeah, because we're all operating from like a habitual place. We're habitual creatures. And if your habit is to live in the future or live in the past, then that's where you're going to come back to. And you have to train yourself. It has to become a habit to live now.
Yeah.
And to practice the healthier things in life.
And to breathe. Like, we all hold our breath, and the body just needs the breath.
Yeah, I was telling Court yesterday, I'm like, there are times where I probably remind myself to breathe 20 times a day. Because I'll be sitting in my car, and I'll just be going, and I'm like, how are you alive? Like, how, you haven't taken a breath for 2 hours, and like, you're just sitting here, and you start to feel things, and you start to think things, and you're like, why do I feel so shitty right now?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with me? And you're like, oh.
So good. Because 77,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative. And those negative thoughts create feelings and emotions that make us feel a certain way, and how you feel is what you attract. And once you know that, you're gonna go, ooh, what am I thinking about? Let me take a breath, inhale, fill up my body, exhale it all out, get present. Like there's just all those little tools that can help you feel so much better, because if not, your subconscious is running the show, and it's usually fear related and all of that, and the mind is all fear thinking, how to survive, and
it's your old brain.
Yeah, totally is. And when you have the awareness, you could start to, you know, I have this little tool when I start to go, oh my God, the future, I go now, and I pull myself and anchor in, and I take the full breath, and I look around, and I'm like, wow, now is good. And it just kind of gives me peace, because it's easy to go back and forth into the future and the past.
So yeah, like what tool do you use in particular? Because I know a tool that that I'm trying to start utilizing, and I don't remember the exact name of it. I really should. But basically, it's something that hypnotists use, but you can inflict it on yourself too, where it's like the power of suggestion and the power of association. And so you can create a sense of euphoria in a person by bringing them to a place in their mind where they're extremely happy and that they love, and then you give a physical cue. And so if I sit here and I tell you, Donna, I want you to imagine the happiest place you've ever been, the best feeling in the world that you've ever had, where are you? And you start to imagine it. And then I say, what do you feel? Who's with you? What do you see? What do you smell? Do you feel the wind? Can you hear the waves? Where are you, you know, what moment in your life was that? And then as I'm doing that, I'll touch your shoulder or your hand, or I'll somewhere physically touch you, and then we'll come back to that in 10 minutes, and I'll be like, I want you to imagine another time in your life where you were happiest. And then we go through the same thing again, and you do the same physical cue. And then later on that day, I could just do this, and you're like, wow, I feel so good. Like, why do I feel so good? And it's because the association with just that tap on the shoulder, or for me, I've been using just like pressing my fingers together. So if I start to get really stressed out, I reinforce it daily. I sit down and I think, I'm like, what's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen? What's the best I've ever felt? And I'll just create these physical associations with those thoughts. And anytime I'm in a negative place, I'll do that. And like just now, like just pressing my fingers together, I'm like starting to feel full of joy, and it's just such a cool thing. Like, so I want to know, like, what's your tool? What tool are you using to come back into the present moment that will allow you to snap out of it?
I would say it's the breath every time, and meditation. Like if I start to feel overwhelmed and oh my God, like should I do this, and what, you know, all these decisions I want to make, because I'm always trying to live at my highest self. I really feel that that's my spirituality is very important to me. So if I start to feel that, I will go sit down and close my eyes. Pratyahara in Sanskrit is withdrawal of the senses, and go within, because I was so conditioned to look outside myself because I was starving for attention and love as a child. And so I was like conditioned to look outside for it. So now I have to remember to close my eyes and go in and connect. Like I'll even sit and close my eyes and tap right here and say to my inner child, what do you want, what do you need, and what do you desire? And then I'll pray and I'll listen and I'll breathe. And you know, sometimes I'll let out a primal sound just to release something in my body. But it's more meditation and soothing myself and self-talk and putting my hands on my heart and connecting to myself.
So, right, like, so we were just talking about how to bring yourself back.
Yeah.
Right, how to reground yourself, how to recenter yourself. And it's like, you just got a phone call. Breath. So like, let's show me, like.
I feel like I would always just go sit like really comfortable, and my back is nice and elongated, and just like get really present, and maybe put my hands on my heart and just take a full breath fully into the belly, like really fill up the belly like a balloon in the lower part. Hold at the top, suspend it, and then exhale, powerful breath out. and then you start to feel, you could actually feel different in that moment. It releases chemicals, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. It engages the parasympathetic system and just takes everything down and anchors you into the present moment. And you can literally feel that in your body. And every breath that you do that with, filling up the belly, holding at the top, you know, and sometimes even with sound, like it feels so damn good. It's my favorite thing in the world.